there's something really special about the DCEU I just want to talk to you guys about right now. You know, the DCEU, the way how it's running, really leads not just to creativity, not just to uniqueness in how they are proceeding, the unique way in which they are proceeding with their series of movies, but also they are unlike the MCU in that they're not just giving you a typical reboot of characters you've seen before. In the case of the MCU, for example, you had Iron Man, then you had Iron Man 2, then you had Iron Man 3. You had Captain America, you had Captain America, the Winter Soldier, then you had Captain America, Civil War. You had Hulk, then you rebooted Hulk, then you rebooted Hulk again. You had Spider-Man, then you rebooted Spider-Man, then you rebooted Spider-Man again. Or you had Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. Or you had the X-Men, and then you have different stories with the X-Men. Then you have a reboot of the X-Men. Then you have Logan, right? You look at it, they're rebooting the same stuff. You're getting sequels. What a lot of people hate about cinematic universes is that usually it's a rehash of characters you've seen before. Now, when you look at the DCEU, I want to point out something unique about it. So the DCEU starts off with a reboot of Superman. Okay? It's absolutely a reboot of Superman in Man of Steel. Now, Warner Brothers, one thing you got to give them credit for is they take risk. Not only do they take risks, but they do certain creative things. They allow their directors to creatively do different things. So for the first time on the big screen, we had Catwoman. It was a flop, but we had Catwoman. For the first time on the big screen, we had Green Arrow. Sorry, not Green Arrow. Green Lantern. And it was a flop. But they took the risk and they introduced unique new characters. And this is because they were living mostly off of Batman. Batman was the one character they could get right. Whether it was Christopher Nolan's trilogy, it was a reboot of Batman, the 1966 Batman by Tim Burton, bringing on Batman, and then the franchise ran just off of Tim Burton's work, basically, because the next guy, who took on directing Batman after Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher, he didn't do an excellent job at all. I really don't think he should have directed Batman movies, but it's what it is. He's part of the lore of Batman in the movies with Warner Brothers. But the point is, aside from Batman and Superman, with their innumerous sequels and reboots, really, there were no other DC characters out that actually were successful at rebooting or even being presented until the DCEU came with Zack Snyder. And I say this because Marvel has introduced some new characters, all right? But if you look, mostly the Marvel characters we see even now they're actually in sequels. So Black Widow was introduced in a Captain America movie, and she's been seen in sequels ever since. She's never even had her own movie. We've had Guardians of the Galaxy, which is unique. That was an origin film. We've never seen Guardians of the Galaxy on the TV screen. But again, these are mostly obscure characters that I don't know about. I didn't know about. And then they also tried to bring forth Ant-Man, which was the next Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we've had those unique, and then we had Doctor Strange recently. So those are their three unique films, which would be Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, and Guardians of the Galaxy. But other than those, they haven't really come with any other unique films. Now when it comes, however, to the DC characters, which are many, you will notice that the DCEU is bringing forth some real gems. So we had Man of Steel, right? That's a reboot, okay? After that, we had Batman v Superman. And while it was unique to see Batman and Superman face each other on the big screen ever in the history of cinema history, or in the history of movies, period, or even small screen, we had seen it in animation, but never on the big screen in live action. They were still two well-known characters, and Batman was rebooted in Batman v Superman, right? But then we had Wonder Woman for the first time ever in the history of cinema appear on the big screen. So that was a huge treat, and boy was it a splash. We also had some side characters like Flash and Aquaman. But really and truly, we started seeing unique stories from characters who had never ever graced the cinematic screen ever in Suicide Squad. This was the first origin film and team origin film with villains. This had never been done before, where we had full villains, blown out villains on the big screen. Not even on the small screen we ever had Suicide Squad. So this is unique. Now these villains were B-rated. Some of these characters were B-rated characters, but some of these characters were well known. And so we knew about the Joker, for instance. Alright, even though he's not a member of the squad, he was present. We knew, so we had the Joker here, and we had Harley Quinn, who had never ever graced the television screen. The Joker had graced the television screen and also the big screen, but Harley Quinn had never graced, in live action, television or big screen. So it was unique, the introduction of Harley Quinn, and then minor characters such as Deadshot, Rick Flag, Slipknot, Katana, Diablo, Killer Croc, Enchantress, and Boomerang. Alright? Some people would know them Boomerang, and they would know Deadshot and Katana and Killer Croc from Batman animated series and stuff. But mostly these were obscure characters. This was like doing Ant-Man on steroids. This was like the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were mostly obscure characters. But what was unique about this was the story and the twist of the story. These were not good people. They were bad people. They were villains. This was a come together of villains to do something good. Of course, I am forgetting the head of the squad, Amanda Waller, who was also part of the squad. So this was the very first unique origin comic book movie where it was exclusively villains in this movie. And what was interesting about it, so many unique things about it that the DCEU did here. The other twist to this was he got very interested in the characters and just the unique presentation style of this movie. This is what made this movie such a fan favorite. And a lot of people love Suicide Squad. They even call it the best DCEU film. Some people, because of the unique style and just the unique character of how this story was told. Now next, we had Wonder Woman. And I'm showing you just how unique the DCEU is. Wonder Woman had never been seen on the screen, on the big screen, ever. And this has been a long time in coming. Wonder Woman was one of the most prominent characters in the Justice League. It's probably one of the most well-known comic book characters of all time. And yet, Wonder Woman had never gotten her solo movie. And what's even more interesting is, as much as people know the name Wonder Woman, many people didn't know much about Wonder Woman. And so, the fourth DCEU film is about a well-known character that people do not know much about. And so that led us to see the world of Wonder Woman, and what a world it is. I mean, Wonder Woman's world is just totally different to our world. Where she comes from, the gods, Greek mythology, bringing in this beautiful, organic, real yet paradise-like and fantasy-like, but yet still very grounded and real. And so this looks like a real place that actually exists in the world, even though it's not. And the CGI on this thing was just crazy. But really, this Themyscira sets the tone for Wonder Woman. Here you can see the goddess, I believe this is Athena, it could be, or Hestia, I'm not too sure. I think it's Athena because she's carrying a sword. But really, what's very interesting, it could be even, it could be Hera. I don't know which one it is. But just looking at the lifestyle in Themyscira, it's just so awesome. Look at how this looks like a real place, even though a lot of it is CGI. And that's just how good that CGI was. Again, the throne room, so organic, and yet a lot of CGI to fill in the actual ambience of the throne room, which is crazy. But it's beautiful, isn't it? So we got to learn about the Amazons. We got to learn about Diana's world, where she comes from. And we got to contrast that with the world that Diana would go to, man's world, the world we are familiar with. Okay? Again, this is just crazy. This is the Amazons here, and we've seen the fight on the sea, on the beach. Then we see Diana in man's world. And because she has that can-do spirit, she's able to actually inspire the Allied forces to save a town. And of course, we see her epic, godlike face-off with Ares, which is just incredible. We get to see the length of her powers and so on. It's just really awesome to just watch the whole thing. But at the end of the day, my point is, this wasn't a rehash. This wasn't a reboot. This wasn't a sequel. In a way, it's a sort of follow-on from Batman v Superman, because we get hints about Wonder Woman. But yet, it's a kind of backstory. But at the same time, it is, while it's in the universe, it's something fresh and new. And that's what the DCEU does every single time. The next movie in the DCEU's lineup is Aquaman. And while we've been introduced to Aquaman, we'll learn a little bit more about Aquaman in the Justice League. And we'll get very interested in him and wanting to see his movie for sure. The one key thing, and the one very important thing you have to understand, is that Aquaman's world, just like Wonder Woman's world, is a completely different world to what we know and recognize. Remember, it's completely under the sea. So this is going to be really awesome to us. Again, James Wan is going to be the director. There's a different director again. And he's been very successful with his horror movies. And the mystery, the adventure, the degrees of drama and levity leads to something really intriguing, very interesting, sometimes even partially tragic that we would see in this movie. And again, something you've never seen before in comic book movies. You know, Ant-Man was a lovely concept. It's like the Atom, actually, from the DC Comics. But nonetheless, it was an interesting concept to see Ant-Man's world. Because, you know, that concept of being able to shrink and to grow up in size was very intriguing. When you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, the intriguing thing about it is, yes, the dialogue between the characters, but it's also the zany kind of out there wacky world that the Guardians of the Galaxy have. So there's something to introducing fresh, new characters that cinematic universes can actually benefit from, instead of only having sequels and sequels and sequels. And the one good thing the MCU did was they realized they needed fresh stories. And so they introduced fresh characters. They're going to come next year with Black Panther, which is a good idea. Because again, it's not about rebooting the characters. Yes, you have to reboot some characters. And people kind of have a foundation of the characters. But it's all about also introducing new characters. And the beautiful thing about the DCEU is, instead of doing standalones, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, and they're not relatable because they're in all separate worlds, you introduce them by bringing them together and introducing them as a group, and then you do the spin-off standalones. And look how well the standalones are doing. So I like what the DCEU is doing. It creates interest in the characters so that you go watch the standalones and you get more perspective, and then you can look back at what happened in the joining up forces, like the Justice League movie that's going to come out. You're going to look back at Batman v Superman. You're going to look back at Man of Steel, and get even more value from those movies by looking at these standalone movies. All the time getting fresh movies in front of your face, in front of your eyes. People are saying the Justice League is going to be like the Avengers. I don't think so. Alright? I think it's going to be a totally different kind of take on things and a totally different storyline. And much more grounded and much more epic and much more dangerous. Because we don't know how many members of the Justice League are actually going to come out of this thing unscathed, and how many people in the story of the Justice League are going to die. We are guaranteed someone's going to die in that movie. Someone's going to die in the movie. Okay, Justice League. Will it be a key Justice League member? Will it be a key Justice League character? I don't know. Will it be somebody associated with them? I don't know. But what I can tell you is someone's going to die. Probably at least 2 people are going to die in this movie. So you know this already. There's going to be stakes. People are going to die. So the question really is going to be not whether a character dies or not, but the question will be, will the Justice League movie give us more information on Aquaman, which very much I believe it will, and it will spur on our interest for Aquaman and his solo movie, for sure. So, I say this to say, I don't think there's any other, well, there's only the MCU right now, but I don't think there's any other cinematic universe out there. When you think of the Dark Universe, it started off with The Mummy, something that people are very familiar with. They broke even, and they made some money. So now the second movie needs to be better than The Mummy was. But they needed to use the first movie, and they decided to jumpstart everything by basically giving all the intros to the other part of the movie. Use the first movie as a setup movie. It makes some profit, but it actually sets up for the rest of the universe. Now, as for Batman v Superman, I never thought of it as setting up a universe. I thought that Man of Steel actually set up the universe. Batman v Superman was just simply a natural consequence of Man of Steel. And because of that, we have now Suicide Squad, and we have Wonder Woman benefiting highly from those 3 movies. See, people don't really pay attention to those things, but the 3 movies before, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Suicide Squad set the foundation. It set that springboard for Wonder Woman to benefit from. And so Wonder Woman as a standalone actually benefits from Batman v Superman, benefits from Man of Steel, because, you know, Batman v Superman is now given more insight by Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman pays back to that. Man of Steel, which has some similar like origins, now we can see where Superman comes from. Okay, he's about hope. We know Wonder Woman's about love. We know Batman's about justice and putting fear in the hearts of criminals. We know this now because we've seen all 3 movies. And we've seen Batman not only in Batman v Superman, where he was a little bit more ruthless and brutal, but we've seen him also in Suicide Squad, and we've seen he's not brutal like that. He doesn't kill people like that, right? So we've been able to get an idea, a sort of bearing of who Batman is, and then we see him in Justice League, we see him in the promos, and we realize Batman is actually someone who, as a character, has evolved, and through just the 3 movies we've seen, with the little bits of him that we've seen in Suicide Squad and Justice League, we realize Batman was pretty much kind of off-center. He was on the, as Zack Snyder pitched it to Ben Affleck, he was on the threshold of moral bankruptcy. Okay, he was about to cross the border in Batman v Superman. But as you can see in Suicide Squad, he had a moral compass. He wasn't just killing people. And we saw in Justice League, he's not killing people like that either. So I think it's very interesting that we can use all these movies to piece together the movies that are reboots, like Superman, the reboot of Superman, and the arc that Superman is going through. And then we have the reboot of Batman, and we're seeing Batman moving through different arcs as well, and showing that the character is dynamic. That's something you've never seen. If you look at Captain America, he's not very dynamic throughout all his movies. He has one set of ideals. He's never strayed from them. He's always focused on those. If you look at Iron Man essentially, Tony Stark is essentially the same guy throughout his Iron Man episodes. All right, he's kind of grown to be a team player and stuff, but he's essentially the same. You can't say that for Batman. Batman has gone through, you see he's gone through different changes from Suicide Squad to BVS, because BVS actually was, at least the flashbacks that we got of Batman in Suicide Squad were before BVS, and then we see him in Justice League, and we see a different side of him. So there is, as I said before, some evolution of the characters in the DCEU. We see the evolution of Superman, and he's going to evolve it yet again in Justice League. So I like all of these little dynamics that the DCEU has. And I love that their universes are much more grounded. People talk about it's not so colorful and this and that and the other, and there was a lot of color. This is so frivolous and stupid. The MCU, to me, it's like you on a set with the MCU. When I looked at Ant-Man, I didn't feel like I was in the real world. I felt like I was on a set. And there were different sets. When I think of the Avengers, I think of a lot of CGI and just, Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't feel real. It feels like CGI. Don't feel, even though you're in the world, it's fantasy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't pretend not to be fantasy. It feels fantastical. But when you get to Wonder Woman feels like you are in World War I. You feel like Themyscira is a place on the planet Earth. It doesn't feel like a movie set. When you look at Batman v Superman, people literally reacted like if it was something real. Okay. When we had Man of Steel, again, very real. I hear people say, "Oh, the CGI wasn't good on Man of Steel and it wasn't good in the DC." I don't know what the heck they're talking about. The CGI of all of the DCEU movies is far superior to the CGI I have seen of Marvel. It's just what it is. Because you literally believe that's a real world. I don't know what they're talking about with sets and screens behind them. I don't know where these crazy people talk. I don't know what they're talking about. Because when I asked them to identify where the CGI is in Wonder Woman, because this guy was saying it's poor CGI with Steve Trevor and it's a screen, I'm like, no, dude, that's a camera angle. And that actually was an actual plane flying in the sky. It's just that the camera angle is such that it folds over. It's a different camera angle, that's all, to the thing. It's amazing how these guys want to attribute CGI. People learn one or two words like CGI and stuff, special effects and stuff. I mean, Civil War had horrible CGI. You can tell when there's CGI and when it's real. You could tell. You could tell it was green screen they used for the airport fight scene. You could tell. But you don't hear me going off on a tangent about that. And it doesn't feel grounded. It feels like they're just touching each other. It doesn't feel like a punch was landed. A thudding punch. A powerful punch. You don't get that feel in the MCU. And I'm not trying to diss the MCU, but it's just I have a certain preference for movies, okay? So even the little snippets and clips of Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm not really enthused about them. Because once again, my personal opinion, I'm not a hee ha ha guy all the time. Jokes. I just really don't dig that all the time. Guardians of the Galaxy was cool, but I'm not really into the jokes thing. You know what I mean? I like seriousness. I don't like levity all the time. I'm not coming in for a sitcom. And God dang it, I was a teenager a long time ago. I have responsibilities and I live in the real world. So I'm not really interested in a teeny bopper Peter Parker. And by the way, Peter Parker also worked at a newspaper. Alright? And he was a grown man. So when people say, "Oh, well, we want to see the teeny bopper Peter Parker." Okay, maybe you want to see the teeny bopper Peter Parker for when he was in high school. Good, I got that. But when he's a grown man, I want to see Peter Parker. Because it's Spider-Man. It's not Spider-Boy. Think about what I'm saying. It's Spider-Man, not Spider-Boy. I like the little, what should I say? I like the fact that they're going with a younger Peter Parker. Okay, I remember the animated series where Peter Parker was in college. He wasn't in high school. He was in college. All right. We generally had older Peter Parkers for most of our movies. Okay. And people were much more mature. Now we have a younger Peter Parker. All right. And I'm not mad at that. They changed the lore and everything, and it's all cool. It's all well and good. I'm not mad at it. But I will say this: I'm not into the hee hee ha ha thing. And Spider-Man. My favorite Spider-Man movies, like I said, were the Tobey Maguire movies. I like dramatic stuff. I like stuff that has some kind of value in it. And from what I'm hearing, the noise that people talk about, I even went and watched spoilers on Spider-Man because I don't really care for Spider-Man that much, okay? But from what I gathered, they rehashed and redid Spider-Man, and I don't know if there's any moral to the story per se in terms of Spider-Man. Like, if you're gonna get anything new, it's a lot of popcorn flick. It's a popcorn entertainment, but it's probably as good as Transformers at the end of the day. This is what I'm getting. So I'm not really interested in going to see it per se now. My interest was, I was like, oh, I was going to see Spider-Man. And then I'm like, I don't think I want to see it. And anytime I'm to and froing like this, it means I'm probably not going to go see the movie, okay? But my bottom line is this. That the DCEU gives you fresh, I think at least, they give you fresh new characters. They're on a roll. This is going to be 3 fresh characters in a row. They're going to have Suicide Squad, then you had Wonder Woman, you're going to have Justice League, where you're going to get to see again these fresh new characters, but you're going to have some of the old rehashes and a sequel kind of thing going on there. And then you're going to have Aquaman. Now, I'm not saying that the MCU is not doing, that the DCU is not following the MCU in the sense that you get this origin film, then you get maybe another origin film, then you get a come together film, and then you get origin film, come together. I'm not saying it's not doing that, but the thing about it is, I think more people know about Aquaman because of Justice League. People grew up watching Justice League, so they know about Aquaman. More people know about Wonder Woman. Very few people knew about Suicide Squad. Okay, let's just be real here. Right? That's the unknown one. Now, but all of these movies are going to do well because very little people know about Aquaman like that. And the movie helps you to know more about Aquaman, but not just give you a knowledge of Aquaman. You know, like Ant-Man, I can't even remember what the moral of the story with Ant-Man was. We know what the moral of the story with Wonder Woman is, right? And it's talking about heroes, that a hero cannot save the world. A hero can help people see that, but people have to make choices for themselves. The only thing that can save the world is love. That was the bottom line with Wonder Woman. The bottom line with Batman v Superman was in restoring hope to someone who thinks you are so much different to them. Superman was seen as an alien. Batman saw him as very different to him. And Superman inspired Batman. Okay? And so it's all about not judging people based on the fact that they may not be from the same environment you come from. They may be completely different to you. So that was the bottom line with that movie. With Man of Steel, the bottom line of that movie was that in order to become a hero, because it's a journey, it's a hero's journey. In order to become a hero, sometimes you suffer loss. And sometimes the loss that you suffer is because other people are convicted in what they're saying. And so when you do become a hero, or when you are thrust into being a hero, it's not so much about getting, it's actually a continuation, it continues in Batman v Superman. It's not about being praised by people as being a hero, but it is about doing the thing that is the right thing to do at the time. And you can only do the best that you can. So it's a continuation, it's continued in Batman v Superman. With Suicide Squad, we all know what that one is about. That one is about people who are bad doing a good thing, not necessarily because they want to do good all the time, but because they may be motivated for various reasons to do that good thing. In the case of Suicide Squad, Deadshot wanted redemption for his daughter to know that he wasn't just a crappy, terrible person. And so that's why he wanted to do that good thing. Which, even though the news went all over the place, I'm sure his daughter doesn't really know. He did it. He probably told her though. And basically it's all about, it's not so much about the typical trope of a bad person paying for their wrongs and doing good, or even changing and becoming someone who wants to be a good person. No. It's mainly about bad people and how they are motivated to do something which may be good in the end. So I think that's the bottom line of Suicide Squad. So they're very unique movies. Anyway, I have spent enough time running my mouth. You guys have a great one.